With the Super Bowl coming up and some really challenging winter road conditions all over the country, how can you stay safer behind the wheel? Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us once again from State Farm is Research Director John Way. Hi, John.
Morning, Fred. Thanks again for having me back to Techstination, man. Appreciate you making the time for me.
Well, we appreciate you. So lots of parties are coming up, especially
Lots.
the Super Bowl, of course. I've read that can mean some pretty big spikes in car accidents and traffic fatalities.
You got it exactly right, Fred. Like you and I talked previously, this is a challenging time for customers and citizens to be driving around the roadways generally. It's cold, it's snowy, it's windy, and there is a lot going on in our lives that are further complicating our ability to focus on said obligation of driving that vehicle. And you're right, with everybody out and about wanting to congregate and get together for the big game, now's as good a time as any for folks to be thinking through the different distractions that we face ourselves with as we try to do exactly that.
Not to mention the alcohol factor that I guess can come into play as it can during the holidays as well, right?
Very much so, but I think that's an astute observation, right? We talk often about distracted driving here, but that's just one of several negative behaviors that I think folks, fortunately or unfortunately, find themselves engaging in around these times and wanting to celebrate and wanting to be jovial with friends and family. Let's try to do so responsibly.
Right. So it's those couple of hours probably after the game, like New Year's Eve, I suppose, that can really be more dangerous.
Well, that's exactly right. We know the data proves out that the nighttime driving is indeed problematic, and doubly so if impaired. Really good opportunity to prevent the distractions altogether, or not get behind the wheel altogether. A really good opportunity to Uber or Lyft.
Now, of course, road conditions this time of year can add to the dangers. Uh, Gosh, all over the country, we're seeing these horrible images of multi-vehicle crashes and things. I guess tip number one would be don't drive when it's bad.
Absolutely right, Fred. I mean, if unavoidable, if it's completely unavoidable, understand that. We'll come back to what some of the mitigation tactics can be. But truly, when we hear and see on the news that there are extreme weather warnings, pay attention to those. And oftentimes that should mean to a good many of us, let's stay home today. If our employer has given us the opportunity to do so, let's deprioritize anything else that we might have on our honey-do list and wait for a little bit better climate to go do that. But if we have to find ourselves venturing out, and a good many of us do, I think it then doubles the importance of being intentional about focusing on being behind the wheel and paying attention to what's going on, not only what's going on around us, Fred, what other drivers might be doing, but what the roadways are allowing us to do or not able to do. Just last night, I was driving around with my family here in central Illinois, and here, like a good many of our friends, it's been brutally cold. I think the overnight low last night was -5 or -6. And when you get temperatures that low, we get black ice. And black ice is very difficult to see and to comprehend in real time as you're driving down the road at night. And it can sneak up on you if you're not really paying attention to how quickly you're going and whether or not you're going to be encountering a curve. These are all things that we inherently know and understand as we get behind the wheel. But for reasons that you and I have talked about previously, Fred, there are a lot of things that take our attention away from the act of driving these days. And it only takes a split second to have that inattention turn into a really disastrous outcome.
So how can we mitigate, as you put it, some of those situations? Because, okay, you stay home when you're in the middle of a blizzard, but then you get out a day or two later. It looks like the roads are clear. Some are, some aren't.
That's right. I think there are a couple different ways to think about this, Fred, and I'd be interested in your take on this too, given the amount of attention you've paid over the years to car technology and its advancements and where it's helping us. One is really on the human personal level, trying to hold ourselves more accountable for not giving into the distractions, for really being intentional about sitting in behind the wheel, putting our phone down in the cup holder and committing to not picking that thing back up again until we get to our destination. That would be a really good place to start. Similarly, not feeling compelled to try to figure out what the latest and greatest thing is on the radio or what's going on in the Twitterverse to try to better understand while I'm driving this vehicle. Let's just focus on driving the vehicle. And then secondarily, recognizing that that's really difficult for a good many of us. We're all connected right now. We're all being pulled in many different directions throughout the course of the day. let's leverage the tech. Let's leverage the tech that the OEMs have given us to help us remain connected, but in ways that are not so distracting or cause us to take our eyes off the road. And as you know, Fred, with the advent of autonomy and additional driver safety features, there's certainly opportunity here, but we've got to be intentional about learning how to use those things.
Right. And some of the technology may not be great when the roads are icy or snow covered either. They may not be able to do the job with lane keeping, for instance, if you can't see the lanes.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's a brutally important point too. I mean, the ways in which these technologies are sold and advertised are not through the lens of a snowstorm. And the realities are when we take these cars into the real world and have to navigate them through real world conditions, it can be far more challenging than most consumers are led to believe.
So we're still in January, so hopefully people still have resolutions on their mind. They're not long forgotten. And very often it has to do with your health and well-being. And I guess there's nothing more important than your behavior behind the wheel. And maybe we can make resolutions when it comes to that.
Well said. Amen. Something that we should all agree to, Fred. And I think there's a couple different ways to think about that. And we touched on this a few minutes ago. I and many of us feel like we are constantly connected. It's a good problem to have. The way in which we can engage and multitask and be productive is unlike anything we've experienced before. But that has a mental drain. I think a full 83% of us admit to feeling some measure of chronic stress. And there are a few places to find respite from that stress. I would argue behind the wheel is a good place to do that. And especially if you're in there by yourself, let's take the opportunity to decompress, to de-stress, to maybe leave the radio off, to maybe leave that phone in the cup holder and spend the next 15 minutes just living with our own thoughts. We used to do that as a society a lot more than we do today. I think we would do well to lean into that. And then secondarily, right, if I can't appeal to the human nature element of that, which I admit is a bit challenging, I'm finding myself thinking more about it as a role model. I've got two kids who are 13 and 14 who are going to be driving themselves here before too terribly long. And Fred, it's interesting to think about that age group in this generation who has grown up as digitally native. They've had a cell phone in their hands from the time that they were 6, 7 years old, right? And as I watch them engage with their friends or engage in what now is social activity, and much of it is driven through these digital platforms, unless we're more intentional about talking about the perils of engaging in these things while they're behind the wheel, I think it's logical to assume we're going to see a bad problem get worse. The folks that are most used to being engaged with the phone around the clock are going to be most susceptible to getting behind the wheel and doing the same thing. And so bringing it back home, I'm trying to actively demonstrate, hey, dad's putting the phone down and dad's not going to touch it again until we get there, and trying to call it out in real time. It can feel kind of strange and hokey, but honestly, Fred, I think we as parents have a real opportunity and obligation to help shape those behaviors going forward.
Kids have no idea what it was like to be behind the wheel or be anywhere without having a cell phone, that connection available. So times used to be a whole lot simpler. If you
A
wanted
whole
different
lot simpler.
entertainment, there was a button on the radio. You just pushed one button. That was your favorite station. Something
That's
like that.
exactly right. And if you didn't like that, you figured out how to take a nap real quickly. That's a lost skill for today's youth as well.
So, but today, all of the streaming choices that people have can be a whole lot more distracting deciding what you're going to listen to while you're driving, because you're choosing, am I going to do Spotify
Very
or
much so.
Apple or whatever the choices may be that you have.
Spot on, Fred. I think the statistic is that 43% of all respondents admit to engaging with the radio and trying to figure out what they want to listen to while they're behind the wheel. And that's a far more complicated task than it was even 10 years ago. And then factor in the social media platforms. 15% of respondents admit to either watching or filming, more concerningly, a TikTok video, right? Or pick your platform. I think we'd all universally agree those are not good things to be doing when we're behind the wheel. And so, how can we collectively start to demonstrate better behaviors that I think would start to take hold in the youthful generation if we're intentional?
Good advice, John. Is there a place people can go to for more info, perhaps?
Yeah, appreciate you asking. As always, would appreciate your listeners going out to statefarm.com, where we have a whole host of literature out there that talks about not only the challenge here relative to distracted driving or impaired driving, as we talked about earlier, Fred, but opportunities to do better, up to and including some discount programs that we offer at State Farm. We have both a steer clear discount through which new drivers can go through a series of kind of quizzes or exams, for lack of a better term, and log their drive time to get a discount on their auto insurance policy. And we also have a Drive Safe and Save program, a telematics-based insurance program through which good driving can result in some improvement in premium. So would highly encourage anybody to go out to statefarm.com and check out all of that content.
Terrific. John Way, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thanks for your time as always, Fred.
The Haven 10,000 lantern is a smartly designed, beautiful solar light that you will love indoors or out. It is waterproof with up to 1,200 lumens of brightness, that's a lot of light, and the base becomes a flashlight at the push of a button. The power comes from a built-in lithium-ion battery recharged by the sun, the solar panel is built in, or USB-C. The battery can even recharge your phone. Did we mention how durable it is? How it folds down and can run for up to 120 hours on a charge? But the real power of the Haven Lantern comes from the people behind it and their mission to provide this quality lighting to those in the world who need it most, including in disaster emergencies. Your purchase helps to fund those efforts, and if you use the code Techstination20, you'll get it at a 20% discount. That's Techstination20 at havenlantern.com. Create your haven.